What's up, y'all? It's T-Turn. Today we're gonna be talking about one of the coolest things that happen in this DLC, the time loop. So pretty much after you've beaten the Indigo Disk and have captured Turapagus, if you go back to the crystal pool, Turapagus causes a time loop. Turapagus messes with time, and it's one of the coolest things ever. Now, I've been giving so much thought to this time loop, so I have so much to say about it, but first, I'm gonna explain just what is happening in this time loop, okay? But it gets kind of crazy. So, when you're going to Area 0 with Kieran, Carmen, and Briar essentially, that whole experience, up until you meet Turapagus, she makes a book about all her thoughts and explaining what the hidden treasures of Area 0 are. Essentially, this is a sequel to the Scarlet book and the Violet book, fittingly because she's the descendant of Heath, who's the original author of them, and fittingly because the games are called Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and the DLC is the Hidden Treasures of Area 0. The games reflect the exact books, but this is a sequel. It pretty much is to like exonerate Heath's name and prove what he wrote about was real, and reveal finally what that hidden treasure of Area 0 is. But she gives you this book for you to read because you're a big part of her uncovering the secret. And unfortunately, the game doesn't let us read this book, but we already know what the book would entail, right? It would pretty much summarize the 2 DLCs. Fittingly, it has the freaking logo. But also, so this is weird. And only Clavel, if I remembered correctly, knew that we snuck into Area 0 and saved the world from the time machine. It looks like Clavel, I don't mean to call him a snitch, it looks like he told Geeta she urgently needed strong trainers to help patch up the situation on Area 0, so she started telling it to Briar. Now, Geeta does say that she didn't tell Briar all the details, but I'm pretty sure Briar knows a time machine was made. So this is all very weird, because it's possible that means Briar wrote about a lot more than just the 2 DLCs. She might have wrote about Sada and Turo making this time machine. Of course, she would have to black out details the same way Heath did, but pretty much this book has a lot of information about it. We could even say about the last 10 years of history. Maybe from the invention of the Terra Orb, to the invention of the time machine, to the 2 DLCs taking place and us catching Turapagus. So that's the white book. But when we go to Kitakami, I'm not sure if Turapagus is a troll or not, and we'll talk about maybe why Turapagus did this. But he summoned Sadanturo from the past, which immediately effed up time. And we started a time loop. And at the end of this exchange, we get to talk to Sadanturo. And at the end, we trade our DLC White Hidden Treasures of Area 0 sequel book to the man or woman in the past. We just told them the next 10 years of history concerning their own, the exact crap they're researching. And in exchange, we get their Scarlet and Violet book. Now, Sada and Turo, they talk about the idea that there are other timelines. Don't think about that. For this video, just pretend everything is taking place in one linear timeline. So when we met Sada and Turo, it's from our same timeline. In the past, we met them temporarily and then they went back to the past. Now, what I noticed, because I took screenshots of all the journals to make this video, I noticed there was actually a hint that Sada and Turo knew something they weren't supposed to, which means this time loop really did happen. But it's hard to notice, but it goes like this. Pretty much the journals you can find in Area 0, they're supposed to be from the Underdepths lab. But I guess Sada and Turo, they accidentally left some on the surface, so you can see what some of their top secret research is concerning the turtle with the shell. So they write about stuff. They make statements like, you know, we've studied the shell of blanked out name and we've determined this is what causes terastallizing. That blanked out name is Turapagus. I know the letters don't match up. We've been through this song and dance. I thought it wouldn't be Turapagus' name, it is. So we'll just leave it at that. They had Turapagus' name written down on journals from many years ago. Now, here's the issue, right? So you imagine, okay, Sada and Turo, they named Turapagus. But they didn't name Turapagus. The person who named Turapagus was the man from 200 years ago, Heath. But no one knows that he named it Turapagus. The first person to ever actually mention Turapagus' name in the story is Briar, because she shows us a hidden page from Heath's original manuscripts where Heath is the one who names it Turapagus. So I don't know if you guys caught it, but Sada and Turo don't have Heath's original manuscript. They are never supposed to know Turapagus' name. which means in those journal entries, the reason they call it Tauropagus, even though it's blacked out, is because they already have that white book that already explains Tauropagus's name and all. That's crazy. And if you want further proof that, yeah, the person we met is from our own timeline, if you go into the Underdepths lab, some of y'all already know this, and you, instead of exploring Underdepths Area 0, you go to the papers and talk to them. One of them is a journal from Sada and Turo that says that in the middle of their research, suddenly they were transported to a lake that smelled of sulfur, and a child gave them a white book. That is insane. The time loop, it keeps going, alright? I'm assuming even before they made that Terra Orb, that they were already doing time machine research. Because if you look at some of the journals, they're talking about needing funding. So this Sada and Turo, it might even be from before the Terra Orb. But they have a book in their hands that talks about Sada and Turo's research, where they made a Terra Orb. So they're gonna make the Terra Orb potentially off their own research from the future. So how did that research come to be in the first place? Second paradox. When Sada and Turo are talking to you, your freaking ride Pokemon comes out, and Sada and Turo call it, yo, is that Winged King / Iron Serpent? Because they recognize it from the books. Their reaction being so immediate shows that they truly believe that Winged King and Iron Serpent exist somewhere. We tell them that they're called Koraidon and Miraidon, which are the names they're the ones who gave to them. We told them unintentionally about an AI that looks exactly like them, and then we gave him the white book. When Turo is in the future momentarily, he says this time machine project is a failure. Essentially, this implies he's reached a dead end, which means if Turo never travels to the future to get the white book, he never makes the time machine. Somehow we're in a paradox, but he was never supposed to make the time machine in the first place. We've determined, right? He has not made the AI yet, so this is his initial research team that eventually they called him crazy and they slowly left, right? While the crystals do make people crazy, the bigger reason to why he was probably perceived that way is he had future knowledge. He had that white book, but he just couldn't tell anyone about it. Remember how he says stuff like, I can only trust myself with this information, and that's why he makes the AI? Look at this. The crystal's power is tremendous. Their unstable output made our corporate backers fret. But if we can harness this energy, it will open up research possibilities we'd only dreamed of. There's two meanings to this. It's a scientist seeing the potential in it, but two, he's read the future. At last, paradise will be ours to create. It's like he knows the time machine is invented in the future. So he just has to keep working hard and he can make that reality. Suddenly, the rush and impatience in the later journals starts to make sense. It's almost scary to know history and feel like you're falling behind on schedule. I need more people, more time. That woman walked out not long after the boy was born. I need another set of hands, but could they be trusted? The white book's information, they're not sharing that with anyone. And how long would it take them to understand? We all always took this line as just his vision was so crazy people wouldn't understand. But the reality is he has a book from the future. That's what no one will understand. Think about it. I need more people, more time. He isn't ill or anything. He's actually racing against the clock because he's racing against his own history book. It's wild. So listen, I've pretty much explained the main part of this loop. Now here's the confusion with this time loop, right? The way the events were supposed to go, they're lost to time. The original timeline, the original history, it's gone forever. Now what we're stuck with is a time looped 10-year history. But after all the loops that probably happened, constantly changing history because of this past future crap, it seems to have stabilized in the way we experience this game. Where Sada and Turo now have this book from the future and they get all their inventions from their own research from the future. Now there is the mystery as to why Tauropagus brought them from the past, and I actually haven't answered this, but that's not the point of this video. The last thing to talk about in this video is that this time loop makes no sense. I know I've explained it in a way where it makes sense, but something very pivotal here has broken everything. How do I explain this? Okay, so eventually when Turo's living on the surface with Arven and Miraidon, one day Miraidon attacks a wild Pokemon, and because Turo does not want anyone to know about Miraidon, he has to leave. He takes Miraidon and goes to Area 0. But it appears that Turo left the Violet book behind. And so Arven, who has to raise himself, he does for a couple of years, I suppose. Then he takes that Violet book and he starts going on travels. He wonders why his father is so obsessed with it. Eventually leads him to hunting down the Herba Mystica, then meeting up with us, where we use that book to stop the time machine. And then AI Turo takes that book to the future. But you see, that timeline I just told you can't happen if Sada and Turo give us the book 10 years ago. Alright, make sure y'all shank that like button. That is the paradox. There's more to explore on this, but I just had to explain what the paradox is in the first place. And then we can talk about the two potential answers, as well as something else that's really freaky. That's somewhere in the game, I think y'all have noticed, that is about Tropicus messing with people. But yeah, I'll see y'all later. Take care.